Today we're going to talk about productivity. Productivity is the ability to get more done with less effort. It's the ability to achieve your goals without burning yourself out. If you are low productivity, you'll put so much energy and effort into something and hardly anything will happen on the other side. If you're high productivity, you can move the world with the stroke of a pen. So today I want to share with you the 4 productivity mindsets that I've used to be able to become more highly productive in my businesses. Now, what's the proof that they work? At the moment, I run a group of 7 different companies. I write a book every single year. I've got a young family with kids under the age of 12. We take all of our holidays. I do the school runs in the morning, and somehow all of that just works out. Now, the reason that this is so important right at this moment is because the world is dividing in two. We are going through a technological revolution that is moving people in 2 directions. There's the creators who are highly productive and the consumers who are highly distracted. Think about the TikTok effect. TikTok creates 2 classes of people. On the one hand, you have people who create stuff on the platform, get millions of views, launch TikTok shops, and make astronomical incomes as a result. On the other hand, you get people who are completely distracted, spend 4 to 6 hours a day scrolling, and at the end of the month have nothing to show for it. Quick interruption. I'm going to be running a workshop next week, and it's all about building your personal brand in a way that it turns into an asset within your business. If you like the idea of turning your personal brand into an asset, this is the workshop you want to be in. There'll be a link in the description below. So let's start with mindset number 1. I want you to imagine that every morning you leave your house and you've got a choice to drive to one of 2 workplaces. Workplace A pays $10,000 a month. Workplace B pays $25,000 a month. Which one are you going to drive to in the morning each morning? And I'm pretty sure the answer for everyone is going to be workplace B that is $25,000 a month versus workplace A that is only paying $10,000 a month. Now, here's the difference. The difference is supply side versus demand side. The truth is, with most businesses right now, the supply side is not as valuable as the demand side. So I want to introduce you to this idea that there is the supply side of what you do and there is the demand side of what you do. In 90% of businesses, the supply side is nowhere near as valuable as the demand side. If you're an entrepreneur, you know how to do both. You know how to generate demand and you know how to deliver supply. If you spend most of your time on the supply side, you're massively diluting your value. You need to be spending your time on the demand side in 90% of the cases. It's things like creating content, speaking on stages, going and doing sales presentations, pitching for work, securing contracts. That is the work that is worth 2 to 10 times more than the supply side of what you do. I know that you probably started your business by doing the supply. You've probably got a qualification, you've probably got a background doing what you do. You're probably technically great at being able to do the supply of what you do. However, it's the demand generation that is the highly paid work that entrepreneurs need to focus on. It's extremely hard to outsource the demand generation. And if ever you've done an even basic level economics course, they teach you that demand must always outstrip supply if you want to make a profit. So if you're not focused on getting demand to massively outstrip supply, forget about profit at the end of the year. Mindset number 1 is wake up every morning and drive to the demand side of your business. Don't drive to the supply side of your business. Now, why do you think most entrepreneurs get up every day and do the supply side of what they do? It's because the schooling system taught you that in order to be valuable, you need to do the supply of something. And in those 12 to 15 years of education, they taught you hardly anything about the value of generating demand. Because in the Industrial Revolution, your ability to become component labor within a big machine was the thing that made you valuable. But in the entrepreneurial landscape, it's winning the business that makes you valuable. So I want to introduce you to mindset number 2, the difference between vitality and functionality. Vitality, by definition, is life force energy. It means that you're irreplaceable, and it means that without vitality, everything dies. Think about something like a vital organ. It's irreplaceable, you've got to have one, and it gives you life. It fills you with life force energy. That's what vitality means, the irreplaceable life force. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, you've got to focus on being the irreplaceable life force of your business, not the person who's functionally doing tasks within the business. Recently, I spent a week on Necker Island with Richard Branson, and I discovered that he sees himself as the person who takes the risk, who says, screw it, let's do it. He's the one who notices a frustrating problem and says, I think we should do something about this. He then brings together talented people, he lets them get on with it, and he says, I give them the space to succeed or fail. But without his life force energy to kick things off, to initiate, it would have never happened in the first place. Entrepreneurs have to be initiators. We have to be risk takers. We have to be the one that breathes the life and the enthusiasm into our teams, not necessarily the functional ones who get hands-on. So I want you to be thinking about, are you doing the work that is vital, or are you doing the work that is functional? Now, a key question is, if it's easy to find someone who could replace that work, then it's probably functional work. It's interchangeable, it's a component. But if it would be very hard for the thing to happen without this person being involved, then it's vital. The top entrepreneurs that I see who are top performers, they know how to play the vital role rather than the functional role. I've often said that one of my best skills is that I have no qualifications. My highest qualification that I've ever achieved is a driver's license. But that serves me well because I can't meddle. If I want to get a website developed, I have to get someone who knows how to do that. If I want to get my accounting done, I have to get someone who's qualified to do that. I am not able to do any of the functional work because I don't have any qualifications to do it, which means the only thing left for me to do is the vitality work. When it comes to vitality, the way that you know you're doing that work is that your involvement creates an elevated result that would be almost impossible to replicate unless you were involved. It's often things like drawing attention to the project. It's often things like energizing the team. It's often things like setting the vision, mission, and values. It's things like inspiring people to do their best work. And it's definitely things like raising investment or winning big deals. It's very, very important that you start paying attention to this distinction in the age of AI. Think about all projects that could possibly happen within your business as having 10 steps, right? Just as an idea. And step 1 is initiating it and getting it started. And step 10 is knowing that the job is done, that it meets the standards, and it's time to move on to the next thing. Step 2 to step 9, once something has been initiated, is very, very functional. Now, at the moment, we're going through a revolution where AI can do more and more of these middle steps. It's very, very good at getting things done, provided somebody initiates the work and somebody says it's time to finish the work. So step 1 and step 10 is typically the vitality, and step 2 to step 9 is typically the functionality. In the world of AI, the functional value of a lot of work is going to near zero. You need to get good at the initiation and the completion. Mindset number 3 is the difference between assets and activity. So an asset is anything that would permanently produce value regardless of what you're doing. If you're on a remote island in the Pacific, this asset would continue to provide value. The most obvious example that everyone can relate to is a house. A house is valuable regardless of what you're doing. And many of us have had an experience of being able to rent out a house where someone pays for something and they don't care what the owner of the house is doing either. But it doesn't end there. There are all sorts of other assets that exist. A simple example would be a product brochure. A product brochure is a simple document that explains the value of an offer. Many of us have gone through the process of creating a product brochure where we had to figure out all of the features, advantages, and benefits, put it into a beautiful document, and then give that document to our sales teams. As a result, the sales team can go out and get sales. Creating that asset allowed you to take something that was in your head and communicate it to many other people in a repeatable way. You've probably had the experience of creating a YouTube video that is an explainer video. Maybe you've created a really powerful website or a great landing page. And once that is created, it just keeps delivering value over and over and over again, regardless of what you're doing. I've got videos on YouTube that bring in leads every single week, and these are things that I created 2, 3, or 4 years ago. I've got books that I wrote 10 to 15 years ago that continue to add value every single week. Last month, a book that I wrote a decade ago sold 13,000 copies. So that's an example of an asset. It was created once and it continues to provide value over and over and over again. Now, an activity is a little bit different. An activity creates value while you're doing it, but then when you stop doing it, the value comes to an end. Now, let me give you an example where I got this completely wrong. For about 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, I was doing weekly workshops. Each workshop was typically a live workshop with a venue, typically for 30 to 100 people who would show up. And we would run these almost every week. It would cost about £2,000 to £4,000 to put on one of these workshops. When I was delivering those workshops, it was producing a lot of value, but as soon as I stopped doing those workshops, the value came to an end. At the same time, there were YouTube influencers who were operating in the same space as me, who were producing a YouTube video every single week. And it was costing them $2,000 to $4,000 per video. Now, I was doing activity and they were creating assets. Each one of my workshops, I was in front of 30 to 100 people, but each one of those YouTube videos had the potential to be in front of thousands to tens of thousands of people. So instead of creating a scalable asset that lasted the test of time and building a massive subscriber base, I did 10 years worth of workshops that are now a distant memory. I really want to encourage you to really make the distinction between, are you using your time to create assets or are you using your time for activity? Because the best entrepreneurs, they shift their time into asset creation rather than activity delivery. In the short term, activity might pay a little bit more and creating assets might feel like a little bit of delayed gratification. In the long term, assets compound and scale, especially digital assets. So think about things like intellectual property, content like videos and podcasts. Think about having online assessments and scorecards. Think about documenting your culture. Think about creating a portal for your customers. These are the digital assets that can provide value to anyone, anywhere in the world. You create them now and they'll still be providing value in 5 years from now. Okay, the fourth mindset that I want to share with you is the idea of value arbitrage. Imagine for a moment that you've got an A player and a B player. The A player, their time is worth $300 per hour, and the B player, their time is worth $30 per hour. It's pretty obvious that if you can get a B player to free up the time of the A player, it's massively profitable to do so. So I want you to imagine a brain surgeon who gets paid $10,000 a day to deliver life-saving brain surgery. But they find themselves too busy doing things like mowing the lawn and cleaning the house and running tasks and errands and scheduling their calendar, and they're doing their diary management. And because they're so busy doing all these other things, they can only do brain surgery once a week. Imagine if they just got some help and they got someone else to do a few of those tasks so that they could do brain surgery twice a week. They would literally double their income and create jobs for other people. Now that's an extreme example, but I bet you're doing a version of this. I bet there are things that you do throughout the week that are the brain surgery things. Those are the really hard things to outsource. They're really highly valuable within your business. But there's also all sorts of things that you do that could be outsourced for a fraction of your highest value income. I have a lot of my clients who now don't drive themselves to meetings. They get an Uber and they use the time in the Uber to make sales calls. They free up 2 to 3 hours a week where they can get back to clients, they can secure deals, they can follow up on opportunities, and it costs them hardly anything because they can run those Uber rides through their business. Another simple example is I encourage all of my entrepreneurial clients to get themselves a cleaner. It shocks me how many entrepreneurs don't have a cleaner who comes in once or twice a week and does all the cleaning. Now, in most cases, that will free up 2 to 4 hours per week. And if you're using that time to create some content, to set up a YouTube channel, to record a podcast, follow up on some sales meetings, to hire someone great, if you use that time effectively, it's a massive value arbitrage. Reason that people don't do this is they don't like taking entrepreneurial bets. It's often the case that the cleaner costs you $100 today, but the YouTube channel you create during the time the cleaner's cleaning the house might create value next month or the month after. What people sometimes feel uncomfortable doing is taking those little bets, putting out that little bit of money now so that you get the big money later. So what I want you to do is take more entrepreneurial bets with your time. I want you to bet you can do something more valuable with your time than cleaning. You can do something more valuable with your time than driving. And I want you to think anything that costs less than half of your day rate to outsource to somebody else is a good entrepreneurial bet. There's a high chance that if you outsource that thing, you'll be able to make more money by focusing on the high value thing that you know how to do. Now, it's not just people that you can outsource things to, it's also technology that you can outsource things to. A lot of us get subscription fatigue. We hate the idea of having multiple subscriptions that our business is paying. There's $30 for this and $50 for that and $100 a month for that. And it starts to add up and it feels overwhelming. But the truth is that many of those subscriptions are saving you enormous amounts of time. For example, Most of the people who are using Score App pay less than $50 a month, and it allows them to generate 100 leads a month. It does that on autopilot. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It's an asset. They create it once, and then it keeps delivering value month after month. For a small fee every single month, it frees up an enormous amount of time by creating a regular stream of inbound leads. That's an easy example where a small amount of money spent on technology frees up a huge amount of your time to focus on high value work. So there we have it, 4 mindset shifts to help elevate your value and make sure that the things that you do have a bigger impact, more leverage, more scale. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a subscribe or a comment, and also think about who do you know who is feeling a little bit burnt out as an entrepreneur, who has a lot of value but it's being diluted. Send them this video. They'll be very grateful that you did. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. And until then, be brave, have fun, and make a big dent in the universe.